Isla Monroe pushed open the heavy glass doors of Avantra Solutions headquarters, the heavy downpour still dampening her dark trench coat. Raindrops clung stubbornly to the fabric, and her polished shoes bore traces of the muddy sidewalk she had hurried across. Inside, the lobby sparkled with opulence. Marble floors stretched beneath towering crystal chandeliers, and the polished walls echoed the soft click of high heels and murmurs of important conversations. She stepped cautiously, clutching the small leather briefcase she carried, her simple white blouse slightly wrinkled beneath her coat. Her hair was tied back hastily, a few damp strands clinging to her forehead. Around her, impeccably dressed staff and executives flashed curious, sometimes dismissive, glances her way. Quiet whispers rippled through groups clustered near the sleek reception desk. From his spot beside the reception, Marcus Dalton lounged with a confident smirk. A senior manager known for his sharp tongue and quick judgments, he caught sight of Isla standing alone, unassuming in her plain clothes and wet coat. He raised an eyebrow, voice dripping with condescension as he called out, "Hey, you. New around here, huh? Fancy helping out by grabbing some cleaning supplies from the storage closet? The janitorial staff could use an extra hand." Isla turned slowly, meeting his eyes with steady calm. "Of course, I'll take care of it," she replied politely, the smoothness of her tone belying the firmness beneath. Without waiting for further instruction, she stepped past Marcus and the watching crowd, her stride purposeful as she headed not toward the storage room, but toward the executive wing. Marcus's grin lingered, full of arrogant assumptions, completely unaware that Isla Monroe was about to change the entire game. Isla rounded the corner toward the HR director's office, the hum of activity from the lobby fading behind her. The polished hallways of Avantra Solutions felt starkly different from the chaos she had just left. The muted click of her shoes against the gleaming floor echoed softly as she walked with deliberate ease. Her briefcase swung gently at her side, but her grip was firm, reflecting the steady determination beneath her calm exterior. Ahead, the door to the HR suite was open, and a familiar figure stood waiting with a smile that softened the building's sometimes daunting atmosphere. Ms. Caldwell, the company's top human resources executive, stepped forward, her expression bright with anticipation. "Isla, welcome," Ms. Caldwell said warmly, extending a hand that Isla shook confidently. "We've been looking forward to your arrival." The comfort in Ms. Caldwell's voice contrasted sharply with the skeptics in the lobby, but Isla maintained her composed demeanor. "Thank you, Ms. Caldwell. It's good to be here." Inside the spacious office, sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, casting a warm glow on contemporary furnishings. The scene was far removed from the marble and crystal of the lobby, a place focused on people rather than prestige. Ms. Caldwell motioned for Isla to sit, then settled across from her. "Your role as Director of Client Relations is pivotal. You'll be overseeing a large team responsible for revamping our entire client experience strategy. We expect bold leadership, clear direction, and impactful results." Isla nodded thoughtfully. "I'm eager to dive in. Client experience is where the business lives and breathes. Building trust and delivering consistent value will be my priorities. As you know," Ms. Caldwell continued, "there'll be challenges ahead. Resistance to change, old systems, and deeply ingrained habits. But your track record shows you're more than ready for this. Your leadership at Dalton and Company transformed client retention models, impressive work." Isla allowed herself a brief smile, recalling the long hours and strategic overhauls that had brought those results. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I believe in leading by example, hands-on and inclusive. It's about earning respect, not demanding it." Back in the lobby, the atmosphere had shifted subtly but not necessarily for the better. Marcus lingered near the reception desk, surrounded by a small cluster of colleagues. His eyes sparkled with self-satisfaction as he recounted the morning's exchange with Isla to anyone within earshot. So, the poor thing looked like she'd just come through a storm and tried to act all high and mighty, Marcus scoffed loudly, leaning in conspiratorially. I told her to grab towels for the cleaning crew. She didn't even flinch, just smiled and said she'd take care of it. Maybe she's a janitor with a sense of humor? Laughter followed, low and uneven. A few employees exchanged glances, some smirked, others seemed uncomfortable. One of the younger staffers, Jenna, frowned subtly before turning back to her work. I don't see why we should amuse his attitude, Jenna whispered to a coworker beside her. Who cares if she looks different? Doesn't mean she's not important. But the moment passed quickly amid the ongoing shuffle of arrivals and departures. Then the PA system crackled to life, crisp and authoritative. Attention all Avantra Solutions staff, please proceed to the main conference room immediately for an urgent company-wide meeting. Attendance is mandatory. Mirrors of speculation swept across the lobby. Marcus stiffened, his confidence flickering for just a moment before he masked it with a smirk. Probably just another policy update. Nothing to get excited about, he said loudly enough for additional nearby employees to hear. Let's get it over with. Reluctantly, Marcus began moving with the stream of employees flowing toward the elevator bank. His companions exchanged knowing looks, unsure whether to share his cavalier attitude or wonder about the sudden imperative gathering. Still, none questioned the unfolding scene. Isla, fresh from her meeting, followed the crowd with a composed air, showing no rush but steady purpose. She glanced briefly at Marcus as they passed in opposite directions by the elevator. His expression betrayed no knowledge of what awaited him, a reversed situation about to unfold in a room filled with colleagues. As the elevator doors slid shut behind them, the building's quiet professionalism shifted into anticipatory tension, curiosity rippling through Avantra Solutions' tightly knit workforce. The moment felt charged, signaling that this meeting was about to redefine roles, perceptions, and power dynamics in ways few expected. Isla's steady presence, marked by quiet confidence and measured steps, contrasted sharply with the undercurrent of whispers and shifting gazes trailing after her. The scene was set for an announcement that would echo far beyond the towering walls of the headquarters, right to the core of the company's culture and hierarchy. The conference room was vast and sleek, its glass walls allowing panoramic views of the city skyline, which shimmered faintly under a thin veil of afternoon clouds. Rows of leather chairs were filled with men and women in business attire, their conversations quieting down as the murmur of gathering employees grew into a low, expectant hush. Isla Monroe entered last, her calm expression unreadable as she took a seat near the front, away from the prying eyes and murmurs that followed her every move. Marcus Dalton shuffled in with his usual swagger, his confident smile firmly in place, though it faltered imperceptibly when his eyes landed on Isla. His mind raced to interpret her presence and position, but he pushed the confusion aside. After all, she had looked like any temporary worker to him earlier. Surely, this gathering wouldn't prove otherwise. Moments later, the room darkened slightly as CEO Richard Donovan stepped onto the raised platform. The atmosphere shifted instantly, attention stiffened, and a reverential silence settled. Donovan looked out over the assembled team, his eyes sharp and measured. Good afternoon, Donovan began smoothly. Thank you all for attending this important meeting on such short notice. His gaze lingered purposefully on Isla for just a moment, then returned to the crowd. Today marks a significant step for Avantra Solutions. We're here to welcome a new addition to our leadership team. Someone who will be pivotal in shaping the future of our client engagement and operational excellence. A subtle stir swept through the room. The murmurs grew but quickly hushed as Donovan raised a hand. Isla Monroe, he announced, his voice clear and resonant, has joined us as our new Director of Operations. A ripple of shock crashed through the audience. Marcus's confident grin drained instantly, his eyes widened, mouth slightly agape, as whispered gasps filled the space. He hardly registered the CEO's words, stunned into silence. Around him, co-workers exchanged incredulous glances that gradually morphed into nods of respect. Donovan continued with deliberate cadence. Isla comes to us with a proven track record of leading transformative initiatives across several multinational firms. At her previous company, she spearheaded a customer experience overhaul that boosted retention rates by over 40% in less than 2 years, an achievement that earned her industry-wide recognition. The room absorbed the statement, faces shifting between surprise and admiration. Isla sat tall, her poised composure uncompromised as she caught the appreciative gaze of a few senior colleagues nodding in support. Donovan's voice softened slightly. Her leadership style is defined by clarity of vision and commitment to meaningful results. I am confident Isla will help us elevate Avantra Solutions to new heights. Marcus struggled to find words, his pride deeply wounded. His mouth opened once, then closed, as the room's eyes now partly rested on him with a trace of judgment. The arrogance that had propelled him through previous office politics was evaporating fast. Isla stood gracefully and moved toward the podium. Her voice, when she spoke, exuded quiet strength and professionalism. Thank you, Mr. Donovan, and thank you all for welcoming me. I'm honored to join Avantra Solutions at such a critical juncture. She paused, scanning the room. My goal is to work closely with each of you, fostering collaboration and driving sustainable growth. Together, we'll focus on enhancing client relationships and operational efficiency. I believe in transparent leadership and open communication, where every voice counts. A few scattered applause began, growing into a supportive swell that filled the expansive room. Isla's words had touched a chord, her confidence sparked a newfound optimism where skepticism had lingered only moments before. Marcus slid down in his seat, defeated yet unable to look away. The realization dawned painfully, her role was real, and his judgment had been not only premature but profoundly misplaced. The room's dynamic had shifted decisively, with Isla now at its center. As the meeting proceeded, Donovan opened the floor for questions, but most employees were still processing the revelation. A few senior staff members approached Isla afterward, eager to engage. She met their interest with readiness, discussing upcoming initiatives with ease. Marcus, by contrast, was left isolated, consumed by his own thoughts but unable to contest the undeniable change occurring before him. By the time the meeting ended, the atmosphere had transformed completely. What had started as a typical morning with whispered judgments turned into a powerful statement about leadership and respect. Isla Monroe was no longer an overlooked figure, she was the new force guiding Avantra Solutions toward the future. The conference room still hummed softly with residual energy from the announcement as Richard Donovan stepped aside to let Isla take center stage. The low murmurs of surprise had settled into attentive silence, eyes fixed on the woman who now embodied their company's future. The gravity of the moment was unmistakable as a senior executive, Karen Tully, rose to provide a more detailed introduction. Allow me to expand on Isla Monroe's impressive background, Karen began, her tone measured but warm. Before joining Avantra Solutions, Isla led a division at Sterling Tech where she transformed operational workflows, resulting in a 30% revenue increase over just 18 months. She was widely recognized for her ability to bring teams together, inspire innovation, and drive measurable growth. Her strategic vision aligns perfectly with our next phase of expansion. There was a collective intake of breath, some nods of newfound respect, as Karen's words painted a portrait far removed from the quiet figure Isla had presented earlier. Isla stepped forward, briefly smiling before addressing the room directly. Thank you, Karen, and thank you all for your warm welcome. I'd like to share a bit about why I chose to start my day as I did. The room leaned in, their curiosity piqued. I came here this morning directly from an early mentoring session at one of our partner companies, Isla explained. Given the tight schedule and unexpected weather, I opted for a minimalist outfit so I could focus on observing your team's culture without distraction. She tugged gently at the cuff of her simple blouse. I believe leadership is less about appearances and more about action and integrity. This approach helps me see people for who they are, not what they look like. A subtle shift rippled through the audience, a recognition of her humility and grounded personality, qualities not always displayed in corporate leadership. Ms. Caldwell offered a nod from her seat, affirming Isla's reputation for hands-on leadership and clear-sighted humility. Isla continued, her voice steady and confident. I value competence, transparency, and respect above all else. As I move forward, I intend to set clear expectations and foster an environment where collaboration thrives. Today marks the beginning of shared accountability toward our common goals. Hands started to rise, the atmosphere becoming one of engagement rather than skepticism. She welcomed a question from James, a mid-level project manager, who asked about her immediate priorities. My first focus will be on streamlining communication paths between departments, Isla answered. We need to break down silos that hinder efficiency and innovation. I'll be meeting with team leaders individually to gather insights and set actionable plans within the next few weeks. Another question came from Maria, a client relations specialist. How will you address the concerns many of us have about resistance to change? Isla nodded thoughtfully. Change is challenging, but it's essential. I believe in involving people at every stage. Transparency about timelines, the reasons behind decisions, and the benefits for everyone are key. I want to ensure no one feels left out or marginalized. The tone of the room shifted palpably. What had earlier been whispers of doubt blossomed into genuine attentiveness. Employees who had initially appeared disinterested now leaned forward, scribbling notes or exchanging brief, impressed glances. Marcus, sitting toward the back, shifted uneasily in his chair. His earlier confidence had waned, the reality of Isla's presence and authority pressed in on him. He found himself caught between resentment and grudging admiration as she deftly commanded respect without raising her voice. As the session concluded, Donovan returned to the podium and summarized, Today, we've taken an important step. Leadership is not just about titles, but about how we connect with our teams and drive results together. Isla Monroe exemplifies these values and sets the standard we will all aspire to. Employees filtered out of the room with a new sense of purpose. Conversations sparked around Isla's vision and leadership style. The respect she earned was tangible, no longer a new hire shrouded in uncertainty but a leader who had already begun to change the culture. In the following hours, team leaders met with Isla individually, noting her sharp questions and strategic insights. Her demeanor blended approachability with decisiveness, instilling confidence without intimidation. Stories of Marcus's earlier misjudgment quietly circulated, underscoring the lesson that appearances could be deceiving. That afternoon, Isla found a quiet moment to review her plans, reflecting briefly on how much ground she needed to cover. But she felt a steady certainty. She had made the right choice to emphasize humility and action, qualities that would carry her and the company through the challenges ahead. In a glass-walled office overlooking the bustling trading floor below, Marcus brooded. The discomfort of his earlier mistake gnawed at him, his usual bravado replaced by uneasy silence. The staff's changed attitude toward him was unmistakable. Whispers ceased when he entered rooms, and sidelong glances became less frequent but more pointed. He pulled out his phone, hesitating before composing a message, not to Isla, but to Ms. Caldwell, requesting a meeting. Perhaps it was time to face the consequences and consider what leadership truly meant. As evening shadows lengthened through the skyscraper's glass, Isla arose from her desk, gathering notes and documents with a purposeful air. Walking through the corridors, she exchanged brief smiles with colleagues now willing to meet her gaze without veiled skepticism. Her presence transformed the space, confidence and humility interwoven in a manner that commanded respect without demanding it. She was no longer just the new director announced that morning, she was the leader Avantra Solutions needed, ready to guide the company confidently into its next chapter. The next morning, the atmosphere at Avantra Solutions was markedly different. The buzz of whispered gossip that had filled the hallways yesterday had been replaced by a sense of order and purpose. Isla Munro's firm and decisive introduction had sparked a ripple effect, shifting attitudes and resetting expectations throughout the company. Employees walked the corridors with a renewed energy, engaging openly with one another and speaking of upcoming initiatives with genuine interest. The palpable skepticism that had hovered like a low fog was beginning to dissipate. In the bright corner office of Human Resources, Ms. Caldwell sat across from Marcus Dalton. The senior manager looked less confident than usual, his swagger replaced by a tight-lipped seriousness. The entire department had been made aware of the meeting's purpose, to address Marcus's behavior from the previous day. "Marcus," Ms. Caldwell began, her tone professional yet firm, "the company takes respect and professionalism very seriously. Your conduct toward Ms. Munro, making assumptions about her role based solely on her appearance and publicly mocking her, is unacceptable." Marcus shifted uncomfortably, his eyes flickering briefly toward the door. "I didn't know she was the new director," he said defensively, though his voice lacked conviction. "That's precisely the issue," Ms. Caldwell replied. "Jumping to conclusions and disrespecting colleagues erodes trust and damages team dynamics. To rectify this, we require you to apologize to Ms. Munro in front of the team and to complete a professional development training focused on workplace conduct and diversity awareness." Marcus's jaw tightened. Public apology. Professional development. Consequences he had not anticipated. Finally, he nodded slowly, swallowing the bitter pill. "Yes. I understand," he muttered. Meanwhile, word spread swiftly through the office that Marcus had been formally reprimanded. Those who had previously shared his dismissive attitude now distanced themselves. Conversations turned hushed when he entered rooms, and a subtle but unmistakable barrier formed between him and his colleagues. By contrast, Isla's standing only grew stronger. Colleagues who had once observed her with guarded suspicion began approaching her for guidance, inspired by her steady leadership and clarity of vision. Her open-door policy encouraged collaboration, and her approachable demeanor invited trust and cooperation. Later that afternoon, as Isla made her way through the bright open-plan workspace, she encountered Marcus near the central conference area. He stood quietly, head lowered slightly, exuding an air of deference. Their eyes met briefly. Marcus offered a measured nod, a silent acknowledgement of his recognition and acceptance of responsibility. Isla returned the nod calmly, her expression composed but firm. There was no warmth or invitation, only professionalism and clarity. The message was clear: past errors would not be ignored, but the path forward was open for those willing to embrace change. As the days progressed, Marcus committed earnestly to his training sessions, his defensive posture softening gradually. Small steps towards self-awareness began to replace his previous arrogance, though it remained a work in progress. Meanwhile, Isla's influence permeated the company culture. Meetings were characterized by focused dialogue and mutual respect. A sense of shared purpose took root as teams rallied behind her strategic initiatives. The client relations department, in particular, flourished under her direction, setting new benchmarks for service excellence. One afternoon, as the sun cast warm streaks across the sleek conference room, Isla convened a meeting with team leaders. Her voice was steady as she outlined the progress made and the goals ahead. "Our success depends on collaboration and accountability. I'm counting on each of you to lead by example and to foster an environment where everyone feels valued and heard." The room responded with nods and attentive silence. Isla's steady leadership had transformed uncertainty into confidence and disengagement into action. As the workday drew to a close, Isla took a moment to walk the length of the office floor. Staff members greeted her with smiles and brief waves, some seeking advice or sharing updates. She moved with calm assurance, fully in command of the environment she had helped to reshape. The transformation was tangible, the company no longer just a place bound by hierarchy and appearances, but a dynamic organization driven by respect, professionalism, and a shared commitment to excellence. Adheres Solutions had welcomed a new director whose leadership had already begun to change the workplace for the better, proving that true authority comes not from titles alone, but from integrity, humility, and the courage to lead with purpose.